What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. So glad you're joining us. If this is your first time listening, first and foremost, I appreciate the time that you're giving me this morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever you might be doing while listening to this podcast. This is a podcast about getting over your hard days, the dark days. No Rain, No Rainbows is about getting through your storms to reach your sunshine and your rainbows to live the life you deserve and a fulfilled life. And we all know that we go through our hard times. And if you are going through a hard time right now, this is a podcast to kind of help you through it and maybe give you some actionable advice on how to kind of keep pushing forward and head over to your goals. And speaking of pushing forward and getting to your goals, this is the first time for No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. 2 guests. We're going to do our best with this one. I think it's going to be a great podcast. Welcome, Jim and James of JimGear. Guys, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I appreciate the time and you guys coming out. First and foremost, introduce yourselves to our listeners, maybe give them a background of who you are, and we'll be talking about these bags in a little bit. If you're watching us on YouTube, you see these 2 bags on this pool table. That's JimGear bags. We'll talk about them in a second, but give us a little bit of context.
Yeah, my name's Jim Pillar, and as you said, I'm one of the co-owners of JimGear. And, the bottom line is we grew up in military families. We're fitness addicts, and, we had a need. We had a need, with regards to the bags that we were carrying and how we were getting our gear and our work stuff, in one bag to carry into work. And bottom line is we couldn't find it. So we went out, and decided to design it ourselves. So James and I have worked together for over 25 years and, just decided that it was time to build our own bag and then see if we couldn't turn it into a company and then give back to the military community that we grew up with as well.
Been a great journey. We've learned a lot through the process and gotten even closer as friends, so it's been fun.
How did you 2 initially meet?
You mean do it? We met at work, where we work today, and it's at first, when we first met, I didn't particularly care for him too much because to me he seemed a little too cocky, but over time we just became good friends, and the sharing in our faith, the sharing in our families, we've known each other all the time, just been special.
Nice.
I consider him my best friend, and he's got me through a lot of tough times.
Same here for sure. I mean, it's been incredible. It's strange because we both come from very similar backgrounds. We come from families of 3 boys. We're the oldest of 3 boys, both military families. Our fathers were in military for quite some time. Both served in Vietnam for multiple tours. So just both named James. So, I mean, it's, and both of our fathers are named James as well. So that's the reason that we came up with JimGear, was really about our fathers and the 2 of us.
Yeah, and that's built into our brand as well.
Nice.
We have the flag represents our military background, and then we have 4 stars on the flag in the brand that represents the 4 James or Jims.
Yeah, right.
Well, I love that, and I'd love to jump into the bags in just a little bit. But first, you mentioned kind of getting through some hard times together and seeing where you are now, running not just JimGear, but working and running another company as well. It's easy for folks to kind of see the end game and want to get there, but we know you don't just wake up one day and have 2 companies under your belt. What's the kind of the story on how that all came about?
Pure grace of God. No, I mean, I mean that's certainly true. A lot of hard work. I think James mentioned earlier, but just the military, growing up in a military family and really learning that discipline. It's something that is really ingrained in both of us, to really just be organized and disciplined. And when you're that way, you can really focus on what you need to do to move forward. And the other thing I think is not really caring about the end game, to your point, but just, each day just trying to give it your best and it tends to work out when you do that, right?
Yeah, and I think the teamwork. And if you care about each other, you're going to help each other get through the struggles, whatever it is, whether it's in business or whether it's in life. And I think Jim and I both have been through a lot of situations in our life and at work that without Jim, I know I would have struggled getting through it.
So you two meet, you become friends at work, and we're talking about some struggles. With whatever you're comfortable in sharing, what are some struggles you guys have gotten through together?
Yeah, that's, I mean, I think the biggest thing that we've, and it was really early on in our relationship, in our friendship, that, you know, was a big help and continues to be a big help was, you know, very early on in our friendship, as I mentioned, that my brother was killed in a motorcycle accident. And, you know, that's, it's something that changes you significantly. And, you know, it's a struggle. I mean, today it's been over 25 years as well. It's been about 26 years. And it's a constant part of your life after something like that happens. And it's, you know, it's good to have the friendship and to just be able sometimes just to talk about something that you don't routinely go around, you know, expressing the way you're deeply, you know, impacted by something like that. To have somebody that you can do that with is huge. It keeps you sane, quite frankly, because a lot of times there's moments when it's easy to let that just overwhelm you. Believe it, it's just crazy.
Yeah, and I think too, you know, a lot of times we'll refer to each other as brother. And that's also in our faith, but also a true statement that I consider him a brother. Yeah. I have two other brothers, but he's one of them as well.
It's crazy too, and I'm sure he would agree with this, is I tell him more than I tell my biological brother. I mean, I have two brothers, one obviously that's passed away, but I still have a younger brother. We don't talk about the things that James and I talk about, so there's no question that there's a closeness that is beyond blood,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
And that's important. I think it's important for men particularly. You know, I think a lot of women have that because it's natural for them, but I don't think that's natural. I mean, we're 50-year-old men sitting here talking about that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's common, personally.
Yeah.
I totally agree, and I think it's really important for men to have someone else
Right.
to lean on, another man that they can kind of share with on a deeper level, not just on a surface level.
Right.
Because to your point, that can help men through dark times and help them through tough times. Really sorry to hear about your brother, and as somebody who might one day have a friend going through something tough, how do you help someone through that? What do you think it was that James did for you, or James, what do you think you did for Jim that can kind of help someone cope through that?
A lot of times, you know, there's not much you can say as a friend with that. Just being there, just listening, being attentive, taking the time to be there. I think from a friend standpoint, that's about the only thing you do, and pray. You can pray about it. But I think the key thing is just being there for them. And again, there's nothing you can say in that situation. So trying to say something can sometimes make it even worse. The best thing to do as a friend is just be there, listen, be there in love.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. I mean, just thinking back, even, you know, right after it happened, there's nothing that you can say. And for somebody just to, sometimes that they're just sitting there with you, and you might be, you know, in a completely different place mentally, but the fact that they're there and you know they're there it makes a huge, huge difference.
So you two have created this bond, and you continue to work together, and one day you decide to build a bag. How'd that happen?
Yeah, I think the key thing was just from the workouts, we both transitioned to working out at lunch. So we were going to work, we were working out at lunch, and so carrying the laptop and carrying work items, things like that, and also having to carry this stuff that, clothes, shoes, things like that for the workout, and walking in with 2 and 3 bags, like I saw you doing the other day. And it was a struggle. So it was over a 3 or 4 year period, it just got to become an irritation. And then, for me, in college and in high school, I was around the fashion industry a little bit, in retail and things like that, and I always enjoyed it. And I've always wanted to do something in the way of, fitness, clothing, or something. And so it just was something that I finally just said, we need to sit down and design our own bag and see what we can come up with. And once we had the design, it was like, okay, let's see if we can actually make it.
Yeah, and I think, again, to his point, it just got old trying to carry 2 bags in, your coffee, your food, and trying to open the door. It's crazy. But I think once we had it, and once we made one and had it in our hands, we were like, we've got to share this. So that's kind of where we went to forming the company and actually doing more bags.
So initially, were you looking just to make a bag for yourselves?
Yeah, I think it was, there wasn't really a thought of a company. It was, can we actually design something that solves the problem? That was really the first initial spark. It was, can we do this at all?
I wanted to make sure I drive that point home, solve the problem. They always say with great entrepreneurs, find a problem and solve it.
Right.
So you design this bag, and you have the design you want, and you decide you want to share it. What were the next steps on kind of going from idea to fruition? I know it could not have been easy.
No, I think, the biggest issue was finding a manufacturer that would do it in the United States. We wanted to keep it in the U.S. due to our military background. So we looked around at different places. Jim called several spots, and we got a lot of, we can do that. You should do that in China. You need to do that in Mexico, places like that. And I think through his grit and determination, he finally found somebody in Colorado that would actually make the bag for us.
Yeah, I think, the first thing, too, that we talked about once we said, okay, we want to turn this into a company, is we said we don't want to do it unless we can use it as a vehicle to give back. And then that was, many, many days of having conversations about, well, what do we want to give back to? And then we just naturally started talking about, his father in the military service and my father in the military service, and, how best to give back to that community because of, just growing up in that community, there's a bond there as well. We talk about brotherhood and things like that. I mean, that is the military motto, and it filters into the families. And so the families take care of each other as well. So it felt like the right fit for us, is to say, if we're going to do this, let's build them in the U.S. exclusively. All the materials, everything is U.S. And then let's use a percentage of whatever we do make and give back, to that military community.
Do you think having that connection to the cause, the connection of what you were doing this for, helped kind of push through all those callbacks of, hey, go to China, go to China? How long did it actually take you to find a manufacturer that was like, okay, we'll do it in the U.S.?
Yeah, I wish I'd kept track of, it was months and months. Maybe, here we are, we're sitting, it's 2019. We started the company, just the actual business itself through, contacting an attorney and getting an LLC was in 2016.
Wow.
And we really started selling backpacks 8 months ago, something like that. Yeah. So 2 years to get to the point of having a product, and I would say at least a year just to find somebody that would talk to us.
Wow.
Right.
Not lay out the design for, but just talk to us and say, yeah, we'll look at your design.
Yeah.
And it was, I agree with you. I think that the drive was, hey, this could be a nice vehicle to give back to this military community. And then just once we made up our minds, we weren't going to be stopped. It was sort of that thing as well. Like even when I would get down, he would pick me back up and say, no, we're not giving up, and vice versa.
Yeah. And that's the point I'd really love to drive home too, because I think we live in a time, we talked about social media and instant gratification. Most people won't stick with something for more than a month, 6 months without seeing the tree bear fruits. They might just think, oh, this is not working. So I love the fact that you guys just refused to give up. You kept going and on to the next one. You mentioned before, you call the person, they said they can't do it. You said, give me another number.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, every time, that I got a no, I just said, okay, tell me somebody who might be willing to help us.
Yeah.
And almost every person would give me a number. And then I would call that person, and it just continued. Just to keep the path, because if I'd let it just go at no, I think the path would have just stopped, right? Because then I would have been, okay, now what Google search do I do now? Because I've already gotten 5 people from that, and that was it.
And we were not going to build it outside the States.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we're going to find somebody in the States who was going to do it.
I love that.
That's been another challenge for sure, is just making that decision and then, really sticking to it, because it's easy, like you said, is I want instant gratification. I want it now. Wouldn't this just be easier to go to some of those other locations? And we didn't want to do that.
Yeah, well, they always say if you want something easy, it's not going to last. If you want something to last, it's not going to be easy.
That's exactly right.
So let's talk about the bag a little bit. I can tell you guys have been very detail-oriented when designing it. What were some of the necessities that you had in mind in putting it together?
Well, we wanted something that would be professional looking, first off, and something we could carry our laptop with us as well as our workout gear. So that was the initial point of the bag. And of course, we wanted to have enough room to put all that stuff in it and into the bag. So if you look at the bag, there's room for shoes, room for clothes, room for workout gear, your laptop, your iPad, whatever you got will fit in that bag.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the other key thing is, James said, we knew we wanted to keep shoes separate from other things. I mean, one of the things that happens, you take a set of workout clothes and they're clean when you go into work. Now I work out, I want to keep those separate. I want to keep the shoes separate. So there's we knew we needed a separate shoe compartment. We wanted a snap-out pouch for the dirty clothes. Not only is it in its separate compartment, but it's also in a separate pouch, because everybody's dirty clothes don't smell too great, right? Yeah. So that was the whole thought process is, how do we really prevent this bag from looking like and smelling like a gym bag?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's huge. That was huge in the thought process.
It's funny because I kind of want to question the incentives behind it. Were you kind of looking for what people would need or what you personally needed, and found out that it was a necessity that a lot of people resonated with?
We would need.
Yeah. Yeah, it was absolutely what we needed, and then we thought, okay, this might be somewhat of a niche business in terms of the people that are really needing something like this, but the more people we talked to, they were saying this is a great idea.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of issues that we have, the dirty clothes, keeping them separate, carrying shoes. And then a lot of people started telling us what they liked about it and what they thought they could use it for. This would be a great travel bag, a two-night overnight bag, things that initially we weren't thinking about. Mm-hmm. We were focused on just get me to work so I can put one thing on my back and get into work, like you said, carrying my coffee and not, a gym bag, my lunch bag, and the work stuff. So,
yeah, I think the other thing is the durability of the bag. We made sure we chose heavy-duty material. We've got seat belt handles so that it'll last. So we want to make sure we had good durability with it as well.
Nice.
Yeah, no question.
Now, you mentioned kind of using the bag to go to and from work. And that's the key I kind of want to point out here. You're starting this company while still running another company. You know, how did you manage your time around that? What were the challenges you've experienced in trying to do that? Because some folks listening right now, they might be in a boat where they're working a job, but they're working on a side hustle too. Their biggest question is, how do you manage the two?
Yeah, I think, early on, one of the things that we made clear with each other was that we were going to hold each other accountable for staying focused on the day job, right, when it's during the day and while we're at work, and then doing, everything we can on the weekends and during the evenings for the job that we were, the job we were hoping to build on, which was JimGear in the company. And so it's really just holding, each other accountable for that time and that time management. And, the action lists on the iPhone have been a lifesaver,
Yeah, exactly.
honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, we assign each other action items, through both really, but more so for JimGear because it's something that we know we're going to have to do in the evenings and on the weekends.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the discipline, too, that we've had throughout our lives with having military backgrounds and making sure that in discipline we use towards our scheduling as well.
So what's next on the list? What are the next, rainbows that you guys are chasing as you continue to grow this company?
The next key thing for us is in March, we're going to do a Kickstarter campaign. We have a 2.0 version of the backpack with some small tweaks, and we're going to offer some additional accessories, a drawstring bag, a lunch pouch, and then a cable accessory pouch or sort of a shaving kit. It could be used either way. So we want to do that in March and really see where that takes us. We have some ideas for some other products, but we really need that Kickstarter to be successful to really fund and fuel some of the things that we have in our heads. That's another thing where we've sort of made sure that the discipline stayed in place is, and he keeps me straight on this. If it were up to me, I'd spend money like crazy. But that's the reason he's 100% responsible for the bank account, because he says, no, you can't buy that, and you can't go design that yet. We've got ideas, but we're being disciplined about doing that when there's the right funding to accomplish it.
Right.
How important is it to have that kind of the opposite person? Because for me, I do a lot of things solo entrepreneurs out there. They probably think, okay, I could do this, I could do that, but we all have weaknesses. What is it like having somebody to kind of look at you and say no?
I think that's one of the keys to our friendship and the ability for us to be able to do what we're doing is, like I said before, I think we both understand each other's weaknesses and strengths, and we're able to play off that and help each other out when we need to.
And he loves to say no to me.
I do. It's just wonderful when I get a chance to say no.
Yeah. So for the folks listening, maybe working a job, thinking about going on their own to start their own gig, whether it be building a bag or building their own product, something they want for themselves, what advice would you give them?
I think if it's something that you're passionate about, then you find the time, you put the time in on it. It's easy when you're passionate about it, at least to keep the motivation going forward. And that's what comes to mind for sure.
I think the key thing, too, to remember is it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So if you keep that in front of you and you're not trying to get everything quickly and understand it's going to take some time for it to catch hold. If you're really passionate about it, though, it'll work out.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's even where we are today, really, is getting the brand name recognition. We're not there. I mean, we're still in the warm-up stage of the marathon.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. James, where can folks find JimGear and find your company?
Go ahead.
The website's JimGear.com, JimGear.com, and obviously you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Certainly follow us on Instagram. That'd be great. Follow us and look for the announcements and the upcoming promotion for that Kickstarter, because that's huge for us.
Nice. I love it. James, thank you so much. And I'll be sure to put the links and all the contacts in the show notes. So anybody that might be either watching on YouTube or getting the show through the website, they can kind of click in and find you guys.
Okay.
Folks, if you've made it to the end, I just want to reiterate some of the key points is for men out there, having someone else to lean on, having either a group of men or another friend, very important when we talk about emotions and really getting through the tough times. Anybody out there looking to start a business or whatnot, the importance of having an accountability buddy, somebody to do it with you. I thought that was a great point. And also the patience and the resilience, the persistence. Don't give up after 1 month or 6 months. Go the distance. And I love that the fact that you both made up your minds. We're manufacturing in America, and we're not going to take no for an answer. Don't take no for an answer. And again, keep pushing forward towards your dreams. If you're going through the dark times right now, it's temporary, because the troubled waters make good sailors. Everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without a little pain. Let's grow.
That's right.